Okay, so I want to talk about this 2023 eclipse and how it connects to this cosmic reset and this sort of cosmic healing or purification that we are going through. So, this eclipse is going to cross the United States, Central America, and South America. And it connects to this X eclipse portal that kind of opened in 2017, forming these sort of double X's, which I talked about in other videos. Well, this eclipse is interesting because we notice that this eclipse's path kind of goes over these sort of key or sacred sites. The first one is in Oregon, okay? And this path of the eclipse is going to go directly over a place known as Crater Lake. According to the mythology there was this war between sort of the upper world and underworld, and it created this crater lake. And in this crater lake, there is this mound known as Wizard Island because it has this sort of conical shape. They say it resembles a wizard hat, so they called it Wizard Island. Okay. Well, if we continue on, this the path of the eclipse also goes over a place known as Ship Rock in New Mexico. Okay. And the mythology there is that the Navajo were looking for a home and they came from a different realm on sort of this giant bird. And this rock kind of looks like a bird with its wings folded from certain angles. And it was eventually called Ship Rock. Okay, so I think that symbolizes this sort of thing that we are experiencing, right? We've entered this sort of um, portal and this cosmic reset portal, and we're kind of, returning home, even though our home is kind of, it's familiar, but it's also a whole new world in a sense, right? So I believe that's what we are kind of doing. We're on this ship, we're on this bird, we're coming down from this sort of spiritual, astral, psychic, airy vibration, down to earth in a sense. Okay. And then if we continue on, this path also crosses a site in Mexico known as the Pyramid of the Magician. So here again, we kind of run into sort of this magician archetype, okay? And this sort of eclipse will also be seen from the pyramid that was kind of highlighted during the whole 2012, December 21st, 2012, my end of the Mayan calendar thing, which I do believe was the actual date of this sort of cosmic reset. There wasn't this big extravagant event, so I think some of us kind of brushed it off. And rarely these sort of cosmic occurrences happen as a sort of light switch, right? It's more about this gradual progression, this radiation, and that type of thing. But I do now believe, because of all these connections, that 2012 was sort of that light switch that sort of started this cosmic reset. And all these different dates kind of represent or reflect these sort of increasing energy levels, right? The light switch was turned back on, which sort of initiated our exit out of this sort of timeline, this cosmic reset, and the power is increasing. And when it reaches these certain critical points, it's kind of reflected in these dates, right? This sort of resurgence of this sort of cosmic power or energy, which is, increasing our psychic abilities and that type of thing. Well, if we continued, we kind of noticed that this the path, this eclipse will be seen from Rio de Janeiro, where that Christ the Redeemer statue is. Okay, and what's interesting, actually, the earliest references of Jesus described him as a magician. So here's this kind of three big connections to this sort of um, magician archetype, which I think is reflected in our, this resurgence of power, this return of, psychic abilities and that type of thing. But what I also noticed that this sun is going to be covered 38% from Rio de Janeiro, from this Christ the Redeemer statue, because it's not going to be directly in the path of the eclipse. And the number 38, according to the site Riding the Beast, it says it refers to the man cured by Jesus at the pool of Beth Esada, who was infirm since 38 years. St. Augustine makes of this number the symbol of the sickness. So I believe that this is kind of representing this sort of cosmic healing or cosmic purification that we're going through this cosmic reset, because we can see that there's a lot of chaos and discord and very toxic, almost malevolent behavior that is happening in the world. And this may seem distressing, but it's actually the sort of it gets worse before it gets better thing. Detoxing is not always pretty, and that's what we are going through. We are going through this sort of detox. As we come back down to earth, and this earth's energy is being restored, it's kind of acting as this sort of detoxer, this healer, this purification. Right, the planet has kind of gone through this evolution, this upgrade, and just being in Earth's aura kind of has this sort of healing or purifying effect. But then we've also went through this sort of upgrade, and our energy is being restored too. So that's where we're having this sort of restoration of these, different psychic or even magical abilities, where we're healing ourselves as well, which is why all this sort of toxic smoke or wind is whirling through our world, because we are going through this detox, which was kind of predicted and foreseen by these different cultures and sacred texts and that type of thing. It seems like if we were able to recognize these cosmic, sort of cycles, and this is sort of that experience. Then to take this 38% coverage even further, we can see with that 38% coverage that this is what the sun is going to look like. Okay, and it looks like that mandorla that you will find sort of in these different cultures, but that is heavily connected with Jesus, right? Okay, so here you have that sort of almond shaped aura, and here is the sun going to sort of form this sort of almond shaped aura in a sense. Okay, and we made these sort of connections with these tarot cards, and you can see that this is that same sort of symbology, right? This X eclipse, these two X's, those are also found on these tarot cards, that also sort of where we described it as a map of this sort of, cosmic reset. Okay, and this symbol is also found in sort of the Vesica Pisces, I believe it's called, and this symbol is really about, I mean, you can tie it to sort of this fish symbol, and right, again, we've leaving the age of Aquarius. Okay, and this symbol also sort of represents, the yoni symbolism, sort of the birth canal, and that's us sort of experiencing this rebirth into this, new world. So what seems to be recognized is that we go through these sort of periodic sort of resurrections. But I also feel like this represents the sort of end of sacrificing, right? Sacrificing others, sacrificing ourselves, right? We kind of entered this era of sacrifice to try to uh, get through this sort of spiritual, this astral evolution. All right. And these different sacred texts, especially the Bible, said, if you can do this, I sort of promise you that you will be able to become like me, and that there will be healing and there will be resurrection. And I believe that's what we are going through. I believe that some of this sacred texts, the Quran, the Bible, even the Torah was kind of hijacked right as we progressed. And I believe these religions were meant to be temporary in a sense. They were schools, they were boot camps, but they were kind of rewritten to kind of trap us within them, because this is a sort of, spiritual, astral, psychic graduation in a sense, right? Sort of corrupt Gaian influence, kind of fueled by greed and ego, wants us to keep sacrificing ourselves when there's no more reason to do that, especially, after 2024.